Welcome to Fun and Fundraising, everybody, the podcast where we talk with people behind top nonprofit galas and signature fundraising events to showcase how they positively transform their communities. I'm your host, Rob Giardinelli, and today I'm really excited to have Murphey Sears on as a guest. Murphey is the Chief Development Officer for Make-A-Wish in the North Texas chapter, and they have one of the very best and one of the very top galas in Texas each spring, which is their Wish Night, and that's going to be coming up here soon. So we thought it would be a really good time to talk with Murphey today, really about, the context of even with national organizations, they work to make sure that they are connecting with folks in their community. And that's one of the things we'll talk about among a host of other things. But, Murphey is so knowledgeable, and I knew she would make a great guest. So with that, Murphey, thank you so much for joining us today. We're so excited to have you here.
Absolutely, Rob. Thank you for inviting me. I'm excited.
Absolutely. So for those not familiar, talk about what the mission of Make-A-Wish is.
Sure. So at Make-A-Wish North Texas, we grant life-changing wishes to children who have been diagnosed with a critical illness. What is a life-changing wish? It can be anything that is the creative desire of the child. We typically put wishes in about 5 different buckets. Kids can wish to go somewhere. They can wish to be something or somebody. They can wish to meet somebody. They can wish to have something. Or, and this is a kind of a newer bucket for us, they can wish to give back to their community. And so what we have the honor and privilege of doing is creating something that truly has transformative power, in the sense that it creates hope and joy for that child while they are enduring an incredibly traumatic medical journey.
That's really interesting. So I have to ask, what are some of like the more unique or interesting wishes that you all have granted? Because, over the years, I've been familiar with your organization. You all really do some really unique wishes. So talk about a couple that may be just really unique ones that you've had recently.
Sure, absolutely. One that really sticks in my head is a little 13-year-old girl who wished to meet her father. So we hired an investigative detector to find him, and they got to meet. She didn't know who her father was, and that was her wish. That just sticks with
Wow.
me so much. We also had a little girl recently who was nonverbal and would quite frequently experience just a tantrum is not quite the right word, but something that would overtake her body. The only way to calm her would be outside. And she had no apparatus. She was wheelchair bound, had no apparatus outside. And so her wish was to have a swing outside. And so we designed, created, and built this just magical serenity swing for her in her backyard. So it allows her parents to provide her a level of comfort. It allows her to be in her happy space on a frequent and regular basis. So it is transformative in the sense that sometimes we see kids to see snow for the first time or visit sea turtles in Florida, or even have a tea party with princesses at Disney. And then sometimes we get to provide something that is so impactful that it can change the trajectory of a child's life. We actually had a kid who wanted a home gym. And so we built a playhouse in his backyard. And this was not just any playhouse. I mean, it was outfitted to the nines. We had a former Dallas Cowboys football player create his own personalized personal training session for him. And because of that wish, he now wants to go into kinesiology or be a personal trainer. So it wasn't just a wish for him. It was actually a potential career builder. And so it's just incredible what we have the power to be able to do at the creative desires of children.
Well, and that's what makes it so fun. And what's so interesting is just the range, because all children are unique and different, and it can be everything from arranging to see a parent for the first time to something as simple as just having a swing in your backyard to something that really allows them to kind of find a new life path that they never thought that they had or could even dream of. And I really appreciate, because those are such good varied examples, but they all yield the same result, that it gives the children confidence and or an inner peace to be able to move forward and propel them in their lives. I think that's just amazing.
Something else we've heard that has been particularly important is that we're giving children the opportunity to have a choice back. And so often when a child is experiencing, a medical journey that obviously they did not ask for, a scenario that they did not willingly put themselves in, they have to go to this doctor, they have to have this scan at this time, they have to take the medicine at these precise times, they have this exact course of treatment in order to keep them well. Make-A-Wish allows them to have the opportunity to have a choice and to be able to dream and to have a creative vision for something that they want to look forward to, that propels them through that sense of, if I could just have that one more injection, or if I could just, have a clean scan, then I can get to the other side and have my wish. So not only are we giving them the gift of choice back, but also the gift of hope to continue to fight.
Fantastic. Now, you are speaking with a tremendous amount of passion for this organization. I can tell that, your belief and love of it really runs deep. What about Make-A-Wish makes you so passionate about what you do?
I have 4 children. My children are 10, 9, 6, and 4. I am acutely aware that my family could face a medical calamity or a diagnosis any second. In fact, there is a child diagnosed with a critical illness every 20 minutes. And so there is nothing about my world, my family's journey that would preclude it from happening to us. And so because I've seen the impact of a wish, because I know what it could do, I would hope that if my children were put in that impossible situation, that a wish would be waiting for us on the other side. And so what I've found throughout my career in nonprofit is that I prefer to work for vulnerable populations. And to me, there is absolutely no more vulnerable population than children.
Absolutely. And that actually, you ended that statement, talking about, being involved in nonprofits, throughout your career. And I'd love to hear how you got involved, talk about your path to Make-A-Wish and why you chose this organization to be the chief development officer of.
Sure. Well, it has been an interesting journey for me, for sure. I started my career in the traditional sales world. I was selling advertising for WFAA, Channel 8, our local ABC affiliate, right when I moved to Dallas 15 years ago. And it was in 2008. Very quick, it was in a downturn in the economy. And so very quickly I found that I lacked a sense of urgency or desire or need to go to a business owner and convince them to spend a lot of money on television when they were struggling to keep their lights on and their employees paid and fed. And so I have been a lifelong volunteer. Even when I was in middle school, high school, I volunteered at Texas Children's Hospital in Houston. And so I leaned on kind of what I knew propelled me, and that was volunteering. So I kind of got into the nonprofit realm. I worked at the Museum of Nature and Science before it was the Pro Museum. And then I had the great joy to work for Genesis Women's Shelter, serving battered and abused children and their families, and women and children and their families. I worked at Dallas Children's Advocacy Center on behalf of abused children, and then moved over to Make-A-Wish. And truly, like I said, it really is the child aspect that propels me. I find that when I work in an environment where the mission surrounds me, that I am further motivated, further engaged, and on fire for working on behalf of those that we serve.
That's amazing. And I love that you've worked at several really prominent Dallas organizations. So you've gotten to see various different aspects of the community. And, I want to actually take the conversation a little bit outside of just the Dallas community and talk a little bit about the Make-A-Wish North Texas chapter. It is an expansive chapter. I'm not even going to put a number out there of markets because I know I'll probably be off or underreported. So, talk a little bit about, who Make-A-Wish North Texas serves and how the team goes about personalizing its events, for each individual chapter. Because, you service people everywhere from Dallas to El Paso to Lubbock and many, many places in between.
Yeah, you've got it. We actually serve children across 161 counties in Texas. So to call us Make-A-Wish North Texas is kind of a misnomer because we're kind of the upper 2/3 of Texas. And I think that is something that people don't quite have a grasp of. It's just like you said, the kind of the expanse of our service area. And so what we aim to do is in each of our larger identified markets, and you kind of hit on a few of them: El Paso, Lubbock, Amarillo, Fort Worth, Midland, and Dallas. Those are the markets we focus on. We have boots on the ground fundraisers. We have a development manager who is focused in their region, who is building their portfolio, continuing to cultivate and steward relationships with not only business owners, but community advocates, influencers, philanthropists, so that we can have each one of those counties understand that we're local. They can understand that we are granting wishes to the children in their backyard. And so across those 161 counties, we actually will grant 630 wishes on an annual basis. But we have big dreams. We have big dreams because we know that our territory, our chapter, the population is roughly 12 million people.
That's a
And so
lot of
to be
people.
granting, it's a lot of people. And at the same time, if you remember, I mentioned that statistic, every 20 minutes, a child is diagnosed with critical illness. So if you kind of do some back of the napkin math here, we're not reaching every eligible child who could be granted a wish, because 630 children that we're serving, population of 12 million, we've got great growth opportunity. And so we have a big, huge dream, vision to be granting 1,000 wishes over the course of the next 5 years. And so it's going to take the consistent and intentional work of our development professionals across our regions in order to reach, hopefully, most of those 12 million people so that they know that we're granting wishes in their backyard.
That's, I love how thoughtful that explanation was and how you're talking about, each of the individual communities that you serve, because it showcases and highlights really the expanse of, what you all do. Can you talk a little bit about, before we talk about the event, can you talk a little bit about how the selection process and how you go about, making a wish actually happen for a child?
Absolutely. Well, I think there's a little bit of a misconception at the origin when Make-A-Wish started roughly 40 years ago in Arizona. It was started because of a child named Chris Gracious, who was at the end of his cancer journey, the end of his life. And he had always wanted to be a police officer. So his mom and several different community individuals came together to allow him to be a police officer for the day. And he was so extraordinarily, exuberantly happy at that experience that these community participants who banded together took it a step further, and they gave him an officer's memorial when he was during his memorial service. And so the impact that was made there obviously caught on like wildfire. A little bit of a misconception, as I mentioned, about Make-A-Wish is that we only serve terminal children, and that is actually not true. It is critically ill children. So when a child is diagnosed with a critical illness, there are certain criteria that the illness has to meet in order to be in the queue for a wish. And so, in fact, anybody can actually refer a child for a wish. You just have to have knowledge of all of the medical professionals who are involved with that child's journey. But typically a medical professional or a caseworker would refer a child through wish.net, and then it gets kicked over into our medical approval process. And our medical approval process is one that we take incredibly seriously, because we actually are the largest transporter of medically fragile children in the country, because we send so many children on travel wishes, and it has to be safe. We have to ensure their safety. That is a big, huge part of what we do. So after the medical approval process has been complete and that child has met the criteria, then it goes into our wish queue, where a volunteer wish granter, a wish discovery granter, can pick up that child alongside another volunteer and have a discovery call, a conversation where the wish gets discovered, a conversation where the child gets to dream about what the possibilities are in order to grant the wish. And then those volunteers alongside our astute professionals who I think are just angels walking, get to grant the wish. Along the way, there are various intentional touches to ensure that the child feels incredibly special, incredibly loved and valued, like a wish reveal party or a celebration or a send off before the kiddo goes to Disney, or even as simple as gosh, our office a few weeks ago, we went to there were kids, Wish kids in town who were going to a Cowboys game. And we were there holding signs and banners, cheering them on the way as they got on the bus to get to go to the Star and experience what it's like to be a Cowboys football player for the weekend. And so even after the wish is granted, those wish children are part of our alum network, where we encourage them to be somewhat of a community with each other if appropriate. We have heard moms describe the journey of Make-A-Wish as people who carry the burden alongside us as we are going through this medical trauma. And so it's a process for sure, but it's a process that we want to get right because we only have one shot to grant a wish. And it needs to be magical.
That was really beautiful explaining that. And I especially like what you talked about at the end, especially with the alumni network, and not just them, but also the family members around them, because, a critical illness is, it's traumatic for the whole family. Yes, it's critical on the child, but, the parents also, and the siblings in many cases, have to help take care of the child, and giving them the resources and the outlet to kind of help one another and be able to pay it forward with others down the road. I think it's really inspiring. I just think that's fantastic.
Absolutely, there's a ripple effect. The wish is granted for one child, but what we see time and time again is just the full family embodiment of the magic of a wish. I'm thinking of a little boy who, actually, he's a young man now. He's a teen. He wants his wish to go to Florida because during COVID, when he was really ill, his brother was not only his bone marrow donor, but because they had to be in complete isolation, they talked about all of the Disney movies and books that they loved, and got really, really into Harry Potter. And so what he wants to do is go to Harry Potter World, but specifically because he wants to be able to bring his brother. And so often we see wish kids who want to ensure that their family feels as much as that celebration as they feel when the wish is actually granted to them.
That's a beautiful story. And, especially because, the teen's brother, had donated his bone marrow and all that. That's just really a beautiful story that kind of shows that, kids are very strong, and, for a brother to, do that, at a young age that's really an inspiring story. And, I'm glad we're talking about all these, because I want to turn now to, the, Wish Ball 2024. And I have so many questions I want to ask, but let's start kind of at the top. And, this kind of highlights some of the things we were talking about earlier. How does Make-A-Wish incorporate a local event feel to the Wish Ball while also highlighting the mission of a national organization?
Absolutely. We have events that span across all of our regions. But Wish Night in particular, what we hold in Dallas on an annual basis, allows us the opportunity to showcase our storytelling at its finest. And the way we do that is it's a really carefully curated process. We believe first and foremost that the child's story, the child's journey through the wish process is central. It is central to having the community, the potential donor, the potential volunteer who's sitting in that room understand fully what our mission is. So we invite wish families to share their story from the stage. Typically, we will offer 2 to 3 stories throughout the course of the evening. We'll showcase a wish that was transformative in nature, one that maybe had an unexpected trajectory for the wish child. Last year, we showcased a story from Wish Kid Austin, who was a diehard Survivor fan, and his wish was to go to the set of Survivor And he went to the set of Survivor, where unbeknownst to his parents, he pulled Jeff Probst aside and said, "Hey, I've got a challenge that I want to share with you." Austin unveiled this challenge, and Jeff, no joke, said, "I think we've got something here." So not only did they construct Austin's challenge, but it actually had been featured several times over the course of multiple seasons of Survivor. Flash forward a few years, Austin now works on the set of Survivor. So we featured his
Wow.
story last year, just again to reiterate the fact that these are our local children who, with a critical illness, are granted a wish that can be completely life-changing. We very often will do a fun wish reveal. So something that the audience can feel the anticipation and the excitement behind that child learning at the same time as the audience that they're going to get their wish, that their wish is granted. And so I think, the best way that I can describe how we kind of incorporate a localized feel is that we share local children's stories. And not only do we do that at Wish Night Dallas, but we do it at all the events across our regions, because we understand that populations are diverse and the philanthropic communities are also very diverse. And so, stories that we show in Dallas may not hold weight in Amarillo. We know that in Amarillo, we need to talk about Amarillo children. We know that in Midland, we need to show stories from children in their backyard. And so we're very intentional behind offering those stories to the donors when they are attending our events.
That's a great answer. And actually, you teed up my next question so perfectly. Like it was almost like it was tailor-made. I think it's brilliant that you utilize and showcase the kids in a positive way. And again, some organizations, nonprofits struggle with this. These are uplifting and inspiring stories. And, there is no better way to help raise funds for your organization than allowing donors to see where their contributions go. So talk about how, sharing these children's stories helps you as, a chief development officer, develop these stronger relationships with new and prospective donors.
Well, we're kid-centric. Again, the kid is at the center of what we do. It's why we do what we do. It's why we get to do what we do. And so we are lucky. I've mentioned organizations I've worked at the past where safety precautions and/or legal proceedings prohibited me from directly sharing stories out of the mouths of those we served. So I feel lucky that we have so many children and family members who are willing to raise their hand and say, "I have to share what this means to me, because I have to ensure that the next kid gets a wish, and the kid after that, and the kid after that." And so honestly, a child can share their story better than I can. I, again, find it to be an incredible privilege to be the conduit of the story, but I would do a disservice. It is better out of the mouths of babes, most certainly every single time. And then what sharing the story directly from the child or from that wish parent allows me to do, when a donor hears that story or they get to experience it, I can go in and talk about, how the funding made it possible. We know that every single wish that we're going to grant this year costs between $12,000 and $15,000. So again, a wish is not it's not just a nice thing. It is a necessary thing. And it costs a lot of money. It costs a lot of money to grant a wish the way that we grant a wish. And so in sharing the story, I think donors are able to see that. They're able to see tangibly the impact. Beyond just sharing stories at events, we also allow donors to come alongside us and participate in wish celebrations or wish reveals. So that's another really great tangible way for donors to see the impact that their gift could make on Make-A-Wish.
That's great. And, I especially like, in the beginning when you were talking about, you make sure to vet that the children and the families, and that you're either legally allowed to or that the family wants to. So it's not you all putting out a story without working in really close collaboration with the family, with the wish child, to make sure that the story is being told in a way that's true to them, but also true to the organization.
Absolutely. I mean, again, we have multiple families who raise their hand and say, I have to share this. I have to share this because other people have to know the magic that I experienced. In fact, we even have wish parents who, after their child has passed, still continue to want to share the impact that Make-A-Wish had on their family through their child. And so we are fortunate that we have um, children who share very honestly what the wish meant to them.
That's fantastic. And, it's really inspiring in a lot of ways. And, we talked a little bit, about donors, and I kind of want to put a little spin on the donors and talk about strong corporate partnerships, because you all really have a lot of really big organizations throughout Dallas that are tied to Wish Night 2024. So what advice would you give to an organization looking to secure relationships with corporate partners?
Oh, that is such a good question. I think the corporate landscape is really cool right now because I think so many companies understand that their employees want that engagement piece. They don't want to just write a check and be, name and lights on an invitation or on a website. They want to have the full 360 engagement with that organization. So, in fact, we just did a really cool corporate engagement opportunity with one of our partners where we brought some of our wish granters to their Friday morning, they call it their university, and we peeled the curtain back on what it takes to grant a wish, armed them with some information about Make-A-Wish, and then charged them to do a fundraising competition for their employees. And it's going on right now. This campaign is going on right now, but we've seen it be really, really successful because this is a tech company. And so by nature, they're all a little bit more introverted. And so asking for money is not their forte, nor is it maybe what they want to do. But I told them, I actually find that in development, I don't slide a piece of paper across the table. I don't really ever talk about numbers with folks. I tell a story. And we showed them that through this we called it a magic makers panel, and inspired them to now be the boots on the ground, the grassroots fundraisers on behalf of Make-A-Wish. So not only are they having fun raising money for Make-A-Wish, but we've also just created a new army of advocates, 40 people strong, who maybe didn't know about us prior. So I think being creative and innovative in ways that you engage corporate partners is a great way to develop the relationship. And I think, at the core of any great relationship, whether it's a corporate relationship or an individual relationship, is listening and understanding what the intention is behind giving, understanding what their philanthropic pillars are. And then if you fit.
Those are all those are all just really good examples. And what I especially liked was you talking about kind of the army of advocates, that you had brought up. And, it takes a village. And Lisa Cooley, who's been a guest on the show, she's also a Dallasite. She's the first person who said that on this show. So I always give her credit for it. But, talk a little bit about how that village, gala chairs, the event committee, other local community leaders, how do you engage with all of them to carry out the vision of an event like Wish Ball?
Oh my gosh. Multiple meetings. But beyond the meetings, I always like to start meetings with mission moments. And so again, I always want to arm our volunteer advocates with stories. And maybe it's not a story that they remember, maybe it's not a story that they connect with, but it's a story they can recount to someone else who it might resonate with. So I believe very strongly in lots of communication, lots of storytelling. Again, we are so lucky that we have a large catalog of stories to show our mission through. It's about finding the right one that connects with those volunteer leaders that they can then take out. I also have found that if we make it easy for our development committees, for our volunteer advocates to either make the introduction or make the ask, then they will be more successful. And so some of those easy tactics are things like I'll draft emails. I will draft emails and you can just put in the to field and send it on the way. You can CC me on introductions and I can take it from there and you can totally back out. You can take me along with you on coffees or lunches and I can make the hard ask. We try to meet our volunteer leaders and solicitors where they are in the relationship that they are introducing to Make-A-Wish. To preserve the integrity of their relationship, but also because we're the trained ones, we're the experts in development. And so, what I appreciate is even if I used to actually at Genesis Women's Shelter, I started out as the volunteer trainer. And with every volunteer orientation I led, I would tell people, look, if you never step foot at Genesis again, but you know who we are and what we do and may need it 10 years down the road, I have done my job. And so a lot of how we utilize our volunteer committees is also awareness building so that they can then share the story to others. And again, we're just building this just incredibly impactful army of advocates who we can activate and utilize to help on our behalf.
I love how that answer kind of tied into what your last answer was when you were talking about the technology company, in creating the army of advocates, that a lot of them are introverts. And really what you're doing with those specific examples of drafting an email or you making the ask at a coffee or a lunch is you're meeting the donors where they are so that they feel comfortable, so that they don't feel burdened to do the ask themselves. And what I found is some are very comfortable doing it and who those are and they can just go do it. But with others, you can't treat, as much as we always want to treat everybody the same, people come with different personality traits and tactics. And you may have to do a little bit more legwork with someone who's introverted, but it might yield a stronger result and you might get more donations out of that person because it's a village, because you've got two of you there instead of one. I just thought it was really brilliant how you tied all that together.
Sure. It's the way that we even look at talents of board members per se, is that, there are board members who are just hard charging askers on behalf of Make-A-Wish. And then there are board members who would prefer to bring their network and have someone else do all of the hard charging. So, when we do look at volunteer leaders, the network you bring is equally as important to maybe the net worth you are exposed to or perhaps have yourself. So, when we're thinking about who our co-chairs will be for a wish night, for example, I like to pull people who come from, different communities, people who are potentially different ages, people who work in different industries, so that they are not going to the same well. We're pulling from multiple different communities, and it just increases the opportunity for people to say yes to Make-A-Wish.
Well, and to me, that's the hallmark of a really good event is you realize that it cannot be the exact same attendees year after year. There has to be different energies that come in, each year. So I'd love for you to share, a little bit about what people can expect at this upcoming Wish Ball. Maybe share a little information about the chairs if you're able to, and, just kind of talk about what people can expect this year.
Absolutely. I'm so excited about it. On May 11th, Wish Night will happen at the Omni in Dallas. And we have two spectacular co-chairs this year. And they are dynamic. They have both been affiliated with Make-A-Wish for a very, very long time, Paige and Allison. And we've already had several different committee meetings. So not only are they fun, but they are looking for ways to innovate the event from even just last year. Things like inviting local artists to donate for our silent auction, things like curating really unique and fun and packages that you can't get elsewhere for our live auction. And so, we will have a really fun silent auction and live auction. But I think the hallmark of the event is to come to hear the stories. My husband has been to many, many, many nonprofit events with me. And when he went to Wish Night last year, not only did he cry multiple times, which he would be embarrassed that I'm sharing, but he said he had never been so moved. And so that is a tall order for this year's co-chairs to top what we did last year. But I know we will do it through various elements of surprise and delight. There may be a choir there. There may be a drone show. There may be fun touches along the night about a diamond raffle. I don't know. There are lots of fun ideas that are floating around. But I can tell you it's most certainly not one to be missed. We will have roughly 1,000 people there. And I will tell you, as of, my memory from last year is that there were several moments during the evening where you could hear a pin drop. So for us to have created an environment that was so captivating and so engaging for that crowd, we made a whole lot of new friends last year. And so you got to get your seat now because it's already filling up fast.
Absolutely. Well, that's fantastic. And I know it will be a special night. And, I want to end with a final question because you've been just such a wonderful wealth of knowledge. And that is, what advice would you give to someone looking to plan their first gala for their organization?
Oh gosh, I've been there. I've been there.
I know you have.
I created a masquerade event at Genesis. I created a mahjong tournament at Dallas Children's Advocacy Center. I think you have to really manage your expectations from a revenue goal perspective. And I think you really have to look at that first time events as a twofold purpose. One is certainly for the fundraising, but two is for the friend raising. Find champions in the community who can walk alongside you in that new event creation. Find someone, because in fact, we're looking to create a mahjong tournament potentially in Midland right now. And so in order to do that, we have to have a person who raises their hand and says, I want to be a part of this. And I'm going to bring my network of people alongside in order to do this. Because sure, there may be 50 people in the room the first time you do it, but there may be 250 people next year. And so you have to look at events as a build upon strategy. But I think you also have to realize that events can't be the only strategy. I actually tell my team all the time that our hard work as development professionals begins the second the event is over, because we have to have carefully curated stewardship strategies in order to turn all of those event guests, those captivated audience members that could hear a pin drop last year, into lovers of Make-A-Wish, into potential volunteers, into maybe major givers down the road. I want them to think about Make-A-Wish if they win the lottery. I want them to think about Make-A-Wish if they have extra hours in their month, or if they're retiring at the end of this year and can give in another way. Giving of their time and treasure is something that I always want to allow the door open to anybody that comes to one of our events. So it's a very long answer into saying, don't be discouraged at starting a first-time event. Look at it as two, friend raiser and fundraiser, and have fun with it.
Friend raiser and fundraiser. I think that's a new slogan that has been coined by Murphey Sears today, everybody. And and thank you so much for sharing your knowledge today. Wish Night is it's been an epic social season in Dallas, and Wish Night really is kind of the cherry on top of the Sunday, and is really the last major event in the Metroplex during the social season. So Murphey, thank you for allowing us to save the best for last in talking with you today. It was just a delight to talk with you.
Thank you. Likewise. I love getting to talk to people inspired about changing their community. So thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And Wish Night 2024, benefiting Make-A-Wish North Texas, will be held on May 11th, 2024 at the Omni Hotel in Dallas, Texas. For more information, please visit wishnight.org. And that will do it for this episode of Fun and Fundraising. I'm your host, Rob Giardinelli, reminding you to keep it fun, keep it interesting, and your guests will have a great time. Have a great day, everyone, and take care.